Big card coming up this weekend from Vegas, UFC Vegas 6. We've got Lewis, we've got Oleinik in the main event. I'm really looking forward to it. Really glad that everybody could join us. The chat's already starting to fill up, and I'll pop in and out of there. But before we start the show, I got to thank and send a shout out to Ringside Beer for sponsoring the show. Make sure you check them out. It's www.ringsidebeerstore.com. They've got awesome stuff. I'm not wearing the shirt. I had to wash it, but I've got some awesome tap handles in front of me. I got the boxing glove tap handle. I've got the Ringside Brewing Co. MMA tap handle. Awesome stuff over on their site, ringsidebeerstore.com. Use the promo code FNP, and for our viewers only, you're going to save 25% off your order today. Pretty good deal there. They've got some shirts, they've got some hats, they've got some great stuff. You're supporting them, you're supporting us, and they want you to get into the ring with Ringside Beer, so make sure you check them out. And let's get right into the episode. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick onto any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
It's time
for 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here's your host, Craig Allen.
Big card coming up today. Thanks to everybody for joining us at Craig Allen FNP. You can find me there on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find us at Fight Night Picks as well on the gram as well as the Twitter. So I want to say just quickly, make sure you check us out over on Instagram because I'm going to be referencing some of those votes, looking for my phone there. Because what we do every single week is the fact that we'll go out there, we'll post the picture that you see in front of you, and you can vote for who's going to win. A lot of people like to see, is a crowd going with Lewis? Is a crowd going with Aleksei Oleinik? And that's one of those things that some people are kind of critical about our videos. Once we get to the end, they'll say, oh, those guys always go with whatever Tapology's thinking. But Tapology for us is a pretty good barometer because if you have, by Saturday, you get 2,500 fans kind of voting or going with a fighter A, fighter B, at least you can kind of see where the crowd's at. You can compare that to the odds makers, but we're kind of going that route over on Instagram. So make sure you check us out over there. Like I said, I'm going to whip through some of the percentages and some of the votes and whatnot as we move forward. So you can find us there. A little bit of a shameless plug for that. I'm going to hop into the chat really quick. We've got Louis saying, yo, Seth's hanging out and saying Lewis is great on his back. It'll be interesting to see him against a submission expert. It could happen 21. I appreciate you. J&K saying Lewis could lose by submission. Stefano doesn't know who's Craig and who's Matt. I'm Craig, and I know you've been following along for months. I'm Craig. Hi, nice to meet you. Craig Allen, Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Seth saying it's going to be a cardio battle. Trent, let's get into it. And Trovelin hanging out as well as you normally do most weekends. So I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. We've got a busy card. Of course, we had some weight misses. We have some different things to get into. We have about an hour to go until those prelims start. You can find us here every week for question mark kicks. And a bit of a plug, but I want to say this, late last night, and I'm talking from about 11 to almost 2 in the morning, Matt and I went through UFC 252, made our picks. I edited them today. I posted them today. And man, I was feeling it. I know we both were. We looked at each other when we were done and we thought like, man, those ended up pretty good. So I just want to say that we had a lot of fun doing those. I mean, the Sean O'Malley, Marlon Vera fight's great. Your main event with Cormier and Miocic is great. But this weekend we have some really good ones. Of course, Derrick Lewis and Aleksei Oleinik. We've got those guys up there. Jane K saying, who are you going to take these under God picks? I'm assuming undercard picks. Niji is saying just bleed. Yeah, all right, that's fair. And Jonathan saying, let's get some good debates going. All right, so if this is your first time joining Question Mark Kicks, A, thanks so much for joining us. But B, what we're going to do in this show is we're going to go from bottom up to top, from the prelims up to the main card, whip right through all of the fights, because you never know. I mean, we put those picks out there at the start of the week, and look at the Beneil Dariush fight. That's a pretty good example. Beneil Dariush was a lock for both of us. I mean, he weighed in 158. Holtzman weighed in 156. So Dariush technically 2 pounds above because you're allowed that 1 pound weight tolerance. Couldn't cut the rest of it, so maybe that'll affect it. And, you know, people can go back into the chat and say that we're donkeys for taking Beneil Dariush if he ends up losing, but at least everybody joining us today and you guys that are in the chat, you can really come and grill me if you want after the fact, because you watch it on Question Mark Kicks that maybe some of the fights and maybe some of the picks change. So really appreciate it. AJ's hanging out. As always, Hammy's here. Good to see you. And once we get moving on, that chat whips through pretty quick. So if you want to support the channel or if you want to have your message seen a little bit clearer, hit up the super chat, helping us out. Let's start with the first prelim on this card. We got a UFC debut and a guy that you might be familiar with in Irwin Rivera, and the debut on the opposite side with Ali Alcazy. And it's a really interesting fight because Ali Alcazy, a guy who's been there and done that, fought with multiple promotions over in the Middle East, spent some time with Brave in his last few fights. A couple of people asking where could I find his fights with Brave. You can check them out on Fight TV. You sign up, you can use your credits sometimes to get old pay-per-views. There's some fight tape that's out there. You can check them out on Facebook as well. Edgar's Daily Journey, new subscriber. Appreciate you, Edgar. JTMMA hanging out as always. Appreciate you as well. So this is one of those fights where Ali Alcazy has a nice little background in martial arts. If you want to dive into that, we can. But Irwin Rivera is the guy that we saw him in his first fight taking on Giga Chikadze on incredibly short notice. We're talking 2 days notice, up a weight class against a world-class kickboxer, and Giga Chikadze did what Giga Chikadze is going to do and just totally dismantled him. And it's one of those ones where Irwin Rivera, you look at it, he fought good competition on the regional scene, former Titan FC champ. And I think it's an interesting matchup because Irwin Rivera, he'll throw caution to the wind. His wrestling's quite good. Once he gets on top, he'll land that good ground and pound. Versus Ali Alcazy that can wait it out. He can push forward. He can try and work a takedown. Moves a little slow. And I said it in the prediction video that Matt and I had, but you look at that picture of Ali Alcazy, and it's funny because it's one of those ones where Ali Alcazy actually kind of stands weird. Like, he has such a weird stance when he's up. He keeps his hands high. Not really a Muay Thai stance because he turns away. Michael Fletcher saying, I think this is one you stay away from. I'd be in somewhat of an agreement because Ali Alcazy has that submission ability. Once he gets the fight to the mat, he's really good with his submissions for sure. If you look more into the record, again, 8-3. He's on a nice little win streak. We talked about it, a 5-fight win streak. And you just continue to look at the wins. I mean, Nelson Pace, 4-4. George Bardwell, 6-2. And then the win for me that was important was the last fight, the Jeremy Pakatu fight, who had fought Keith Lee. And when I saw him fight Lee, I thought, geez, this guy's pretty good. I mean, not the best wrestler, but a very capable striker. So I like what people are going with. Jonathan saying submission by Ali plus 1,000. I think that's fair. Awesome to see a fighter, you know, born and bred in Jordan. That we get to see that in the UFC. So pretty cool stuff there. I'm going to stick with my pick of Rivera. I think that he's going to be able to get it done. I think he's just going to grind. I was surprised Alcazy, if you look at the stats there, you can see he's got about a 2-inch height advantage. You can definitely see that at the weigh-in. So it was interesting there. If I head into the chat, just want to see what everybody's kind of thinking here. Jonathan asking if Ali can pull off the sub, the plus 1,000 comment as well. Danny D hanging out every weekend. Appreciate you. Should be an interesting night of fights for sure. Seth saying who else saw Ali trash talking at the weigh-ins. I saw that as well. Pitbull Lash saying this fight is a roller coaster. Don't bet on it. I wouldn't either. UFC betting experience, it maybe has alopecia. You never know. So he could be like Charlie Villanueva in the NBA that used to play for the Raptors at one point, Pistons. So I'm going to go with what Stefano's saying. I'm going to take Irwin Rivera in this one. But yeah, it's one of those ones that I probably would stay away from because Irwin Rivera, you didn't get the best account of him in his UFC debut on such short notice up a weight class against a really good striker, clash of styles. And Ali Alcazy coming in here, training with some really good gyms. I mean, Fortis, when he spent time in Texas, he spent time in Arizona, and then for this camp at 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, Las Vegas. So really interesting stuff on that one. And it seems like there's a lot of excitement for this fight, and I love to see that. Your first fight of the night, you get a debut, you get a guy that's got one fight in the UFC. That's awesome stuff to see. So we'll move on through. We'll look at our next fight on the night. You've got a guy right here in Peter Barrett that we haven't seen yet in the UFC. Had a big win on Contender Series, but it's been a minute. So he's taking on a short notice replacement in Youssef Zalal. And if we really deep dive and look into the fact that Peter Barrett, I mean, regional scene numbers, maybe they're not the greatest. I mean, you look at his record since 2017, a win over Vince McGuinness. I saw Vince McGuinness get his arm absolutely snapped by Ryan Sanders. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in a fight. He beats Vince McGuinness, loses to Drew Moraes, loses to TJ Brown. That stuff's going to happen. You're going to see TJ Brown next weekend, UFC 252, taking on Danny Chavez. He beats Jay Ellis, who has the saltiest record of anybody I've ever seen. And oh, by the way, and I know I talked about it in this video, I get to see him fight before, and that was pretty cool. Then he lost to Connor Berry, so he's 1-3 in those 4 fights. 2019 beats Zach DiSabatino, and then he beat Sang Hoon Yu, who had an extensive kickboxing record coming into that fight. So it was an interesting one there. Like I said, Youssef Zalal coming in here on short notice. He's one of those guys that looks like the next big thing. I know if you looked at his record coming into the UFC before that Austin Lingo fight, you might go, well, is he really that legit? But Youssef Zalal, to me, is one of those guys. If you look over at the odds, maybe this is one that, again, you'd probably like to stay away from it. Youssef Zalal opened as a -320 according to Best Fight Odds. Right now, trending at an average -525. It's actually -524. Peter Barrett opened +240. Now he's at a +388. So it's kind of crazy to see that shift. A 37% shift towards Zalal. I'm sticking with the pick of Youssef Zalal. I'll pop into the chat, see what everybody's thinking here. Let's see. Bubba Gumption saying first day of boxing, they say keep your weight on the back foot. Fundamentals win fights. That's definitely the truth. You see a lot of people in MMA that don't go with that boxing type, and they go heavy on the lead leg to set up, it could be a body kick. It could be a low kick. Jonathan Carden with the 99 center. Thanks, buds. I really appreciate that. It could happen 21. NBA reference. Love it. Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, we're so used to, Matt and I, we're so used to MMA Twitter where everybody hates every other sport except for MMA and you're not allowed to talk about it. And if you don't like that, that's fine. And maybe you don't like those other sports, but somebody might get my weird baseball, basketball, and hockey references. So a lot of fun there. Aaron Granoff saying, huge fan of you guys. Love confirming what I initially think with your thoughts to see if we're on the same page. I appreciate it. And listen, sometimes you're going to have a bad night too. You never know what could happen, but we're still going to be here plugging along, having a lot of fun. So looking into it, Trent saying Zalal's going to take him down. Trovelin saying I've got Zalal here. Complete skill set. If he wrestles, he can get the sub. To me and Danny D, you love to ride with your fellow Boston guys, and it sucks that Matt and I can't go to Boston this summer. But yeah, it's one of those ones where I like Zalal in just about every respect in this fight. Peter Barrett, and a good question asked at the bottom, the cardio, this and that. I'm sure Peter Barrett, you're going to see a good account of him. I just really like Zalal in this fight. And it's one of those ones, again, you might want to stay away from it because the odds are so shifted in terms of Zalal. But it should be an interesting fight nonetheless. That should be an awesome one on the feet. So we move into our next fight, and I hype up a lot of these fights, but Gavin Tucker and Justin James, probably my fight of the night. These guys, you saw them at weigh-ins. They look like the same person, only swapped, and one guy has way more tattoos and is from the East Coast of Canada. But this is such a good fight because you've got Justin James, that orthodox stance, went in there balls to the wall in the fight against Frank Camacho on short notice, up a weight class, gets the knockout, looks amazing. And I see Eric is saying Tucker. Matt took Justin James, and I can see it because Justin James, coach at Extreme Couture, the wrestling's there, the scrambles are there, the jiu-jitsu ability is there. Justin James is one of those guys that's so far from what we've seen on the regional scene, not just that UFC debut, because you can't put too much stock into that, but Justin James is the complete package. For me, Gavin Tucker coming into the UFC, and if you missed our entire preview of this fight, we kept it up on the front page, like it was the top thing on the Fight Night Picks YouTube channel for just about all week until last night, I think. I took it off, but I'm really hyped up about this fight. So Gavin Tucker, southpaw stance, his striking is so crisp, and he comes out of a good gym, Titans MMA in Halifax. And one of the questions that I was asked was, how is his nickname actually pronounced? How's that Canadian province actually pronounced? It's pronounced Newfoundland. It's not Newfoundland. I see a lot of Americans saying that, and that's fine. You're giving it a go, and you don't know. But in Atlantic Canada, Newfoundland. So you got the Newfoundland Terror, Gavin Tucker. So his striking's really good, but you saw it in his last fight where he's taking on Sungwoo Choi, a guy that a lot of people were really hyped on. Man, he looked great. And the good thing about that, too, was the fact that Gavin Tucker was coming off of such a tough loss and all the injuries against Rick Glenn in the fight before. He was booked against Andre Sukumtoth in UFC Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada. I was looking forward to that. Tucker had to pull out of that fight. Sukumtoth got Jonathan Martinez in that one. And Tucker, obviously, like I said, came back, had that great fight against Sungwoo Choi. So in this one, it's a really close one. I see Naiji is saying, I see James coming out of the first round hot, getting an early stoppage. Let's see what else. 3 guys, 1 puck, saying I have Zalal. Listen, you're a fan of hockey, but you're not taking the Canadian. That's tough. Tristan is saying, I think the Gavin Tucker-Justin James is a pick'em fight. I was a little surprised. I thought it was as well. 46% shift in money towards Justin James, which I get it. Again, he opened as a plus 185 underdog, trending around a minus 100. I bet you're going to see that line swap maybe into a pick'em range. And I don't think it's all that crazy. Like Trovelin said, Tucker can be hittable. He wasn't hittable in that fight against Sam Cecilia. He was against Rick Glenn. And in the Sungwoo Choi fight, you got to see this complete package and exactly what you can get out of Gavin Tucker. So for me, again, it's the complete package of Tucker. Justin James, it's almost like a mirror image. This fight's really, really tough to try and predict. Again, Matt took James. I took Tucker. I'm gonna stick with my pick of Tucker. Not that it's terrible confidence or with a ton of confidence. It's such a close fight. That's the thing. So I can understand where you'd want to go James. I can understand where people want to go Tucker. It's one of those fights that I just want to see it happen. But I'm the Fight Night Picks guy, and I got to make a pick. So I'm going to stick with Gavin Tucker in this one. But it should be an amazing fight. I can see a path to victory for both guys. And it should be an awesome one. So we move forward. We look at our next one. Let me know what you're thinking on this, because I've seen this one be a bit of a contentious fight. And actually, I'll back up for a second, because I said you gotta follow along on the Instagrams. So let's do it. So if we look at the fight between Irwin Rivera and Ali Alcazy, fans are voting 55% for Rivera, 45% for Alcazy to get the win. We look at our next fight, Yusuf Zalal, Peter Barrett, 88% of the fans going with Zalal to get the win, with the other 12 going with Peter Barrett. And Joe Vox saying, you always pick the Canadian. I don't always pick the Canadian. That's not true. I don't think I do. With Tucker and Janes, even though it's a Canadian account, 60% going with Janes. You've got 40% going with Tucker. If you look into our next fight, and this is where I wanted to get to, Sanchez Turman, 39% taking Sanchez, 61% taking Turman. And I think that's where it gets interesting. Kenny Perrin with the super chat. I certainly appreciate you. You're really helping out the channel, man. So thanks a lot. And that gets to pop up there. So everybody show Kenny some love. And thanks for the keep up the great work. So in this one, and I see JTMMA saying Wellington Turman gotta be the least Brazilian name I've ever heard. I guess. Let's see. Devin Davis saying, I think Sanchez wins by split. Can you predict a split? That's tough. That really is. Martin Rodriguez saying I got Andrew Sanchez winning. Tristan going with the Canadian and Gavin Tucker in the last fight. And UFC betting experience, Sanchez win by a horrible fight to watch. I think it should be a good one. It's tricky because Andrew Sanchez has that wrestling in his back pocket. You're not really going to take him down unless Wellington Turman beats him in a scramble, I guess. That's the only way I can see that. Alex Gagnon saying Turman was the guy who fist bumped instead of handshaking. Yeah, they almost trailer hitched it, so that was interesting there. And Eric saying this one's hard, or this is a hard one. I see most people going with Turman on Twitter. Stefano saying I think Turman is stronger. Everybody's going with Turman. Matt and I went with Andrew Sanchez, and I'm going to stick with that. Actually, I think Matt went with Turman, rather. I went with Sanchez. Sanchez has that wrestling. Sanchez could take him down. I get it. Turman has what? He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. But for me, on the feet, the single shots, the moving forward, it worked and it didn't against Carl Roberson. I mean, he lost that fight, but it was close. It was a split. And then he won his next one against Marcus Perez. Andrew Sanchez, common opponent, Marcus Perez. But for me, Andrew Sanchez, since he's been at TriStar, since he's been making moves, he's really improved quite a bit. And sometimes that doesn't work with fighters at TriStar. They're not the gym that they were back, 10 years ago when GSP was leading the charge. But I really do think that Andrew Sanchez is a path to victory here. I mean, this is the type of guy that has power in his hands. He's gassed in the past, which makes you worry and rhymes. But if you look at it right now, Wellington Turman, open as a minus 160, sat as a minus 160 for a long time. All the money's coming in on Sanchez right now. Sanchez open as a plus 130, sat as a 130. Now he's a plus 110. So interesting there. I see a lot of people saying, so who will get taken down? I think if anything, Sanchez is probably going to take Wellington Turman down. If you want to get into the numbers, I can do that for you. I've got it up in here. So let's see. Devin Davis is saying a lot of people make their picks based on Twitter prediction videos. Do some research on your own. That's the thing. That's one of those things. Like, you get a lot of hate whether you get it right or whether you get it wrong. But sprinkle in a little bit of your own research and things will go well for you. So if you look at it, both guys 100% takedown defense, but for Turman, he's only had 2 fights in the UFC, so you can't really put a lot of stock into that. Not a great takedown accuracy stat for either guy. Almost a third of their takedowns landing. And again, Sanchez has fought more in the UFC. But you look at his losses. I mean, in the loss to Smith, it was a fight that he was just about winning until the last round when he got tired. Jonathan's saying that Sanchez is breathing heavy. I get it. I'm going to stick with Sanchez. Like I said, I see it from both ways. Most people going with Turman. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this fight. It should be a good one. So we'll move forward. We got Nasrat Haqparast taking on Alex Munoz. And this is one of those ones where size for size, I mean, you look at it, Nasrat Haqparast have him listed as 5'10", 72-inch reach, but Alex Munoz looked a lot bigger than Nasrat Haqparast at weigh-ins. That was really interesting. Haqparast, the guy that's incredibly well-rounded, his striking's great, pinpoint accuracy. Didn't work for him all that great in his last fight that we saw. I mean, of course, he lost that one. And in his debut, it was a tough one. Like, Martian Held might not have had the best run in the UFC, but Martian Held's still a world-class type of talent. So he loses that one by decision, beats Jacasey, beats Thibaut Goody soundly, knocks out Joaquim Silva, and then loses to Drew Dober in a fight that it's tough. It really was a tough one for him. So Tristan saying, is Nasrat my lock for the night? That's a tough question, too, because, again, Beneil Dariush was my lock before the whole weight cutting issue. So I'll get to you for the lock, and the lock's been a dud here lately, but I'll go with one. Let's pop back in here, see what everybody else is saying. Reese, thanks for joining in. Michael saying very intriguing fight. JTMMA saying Munoz for me. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I do too. I actually do think that Alex Munoz is going to surprise a lot of people. I know Matt... I don't want to rag him because he's not here, but Matt kind of not discredited, but didn't really give enough shine to Alex Munoz. And I see where Trovel's saying this is one I'd stay away from. I would too, because a guy that lost and got finished in his last fight against a guy that's debuting, and you look at it for Nasrat Haqparast, open as a minus 205, he's sitting minus 256. I wouldn't even touch this one for that fact. Alex Munoz, the wrestling coach over at Team Alpha Male. What's Team Alpha Male known for? Well, Jonathan Carden knows. They're known for wrestling. Guys like Uriah Faber, guys like Darren Elkins, Chad Mendez, and on and on. If Alex Munoz is your wrestling coach, and if you want to go back and counter me and do your research 40 minutes before the card, Alex Munoz, his Oklahoma State record wasn't that great. His collegiate record before he went to OSU, not that great. But overall, 2-time high school state champ in Texas. You know his wrestling's there. If he can pop in and out, and at least land some shots and take Nasrat Haqparast down, if he can hold on to him and keep him down, I think Alex Munoz has an opportunity to win. I'm not going to change my pick. I think this fight's a lot closer than the odds say. I'm going to stick with Haqparast, but in terms of certainty, this isn't the most certain fight. So again, if you're looking for a lock, it's not this one. Reese saying that Matt's a clown. Well, he's my brother, so ease up on him there, buds. Let's see what else. Naiji saying, what you guys going to just stay away from every fight tonight? There's more certain fights, and once I rip back through the card, there's a few more that I like on this one, and maybe some higher ones up on the card. Zukaraya saying Alpha Male is known for the overhand right, a guillotine, and not defending leg kicks. It'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a really good fight. Who else? A martial arts fan saying that that Haqparast is going to be able to defend the takedowns? Well, let's bring it up. Let's have a look at Nasrat Haqparast. So in the Martian held fight, that was the only one that he got taken down so far in his career. 78% takedown defense. Reese didn't know that Matt and I were brothers. I think we look quite alike. So there's that. Akbari asking, when does the fight begin? You've got about 35 minutes before the fights begin. So Nasrat Haqparast, again, good takedown defense, but it's not like Jacasey, Goody, Joaquim Silva are world beaters at the takedowns. And Drew Dober can be, but he didn't have to land any because he finished him in the first round, knocked him out. So the Martian held fight, that's the one that you kind of worry about. And in terms of takedowns, Held only went 3 for 10. And he can work a takedown. I mean, he's a guy that he's one of those jiu-jitsu standout guys. A Polaris alum is Martian Held. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Usman is saying, sheesh, I locked 400 Nasrat. Dariush is a Zalal parlay. Scared you with the prediction. I really do think Alex Munoz has a better shot than a lot of people are giving him credit there. Zukarai is saying, how did you and your bro get into MMA? Back in 2009, 2008, 2009, when Shogun, Lyoto Machida were up the top, that was the era when we got into it. So, yeah, and it's a tough one. So we move forward. We look at Kevin Holland and Joaquin Buckley. And we could even go back just really quick and have a look at that fight. So over on the Instagram at Fight Night Picks, 48 votes for Haqparast versus 11 for Munoz. So that is what it is. So we look into Kevin Holland and Joaquin Buckley. And out of the picks on the Instagrams, 47 for Holland, 13 for Joaquin Buckley. So it's an interesting fight. It's one of those ones where you've got Joaquin Buckley coming in on short notice, just picked up a knockout win in LFA over an old foe. Coming in here, nice southpaw stance, lands some really good shots, great on the feet. Trouble for him is Kevin Holland with that huge length and reach advantage. JRMMA saying Buckley is thick, but at the weigh-ins, I didn't see it unless he balloons back up. I didn't really see it all that much. I know Trent's saying Buckley looks jacked. He does look jacked for sure. But it's really interesting. It's an interesting fight. It's a good opportunity for Joaquin Buckley. Jonathan saying Holland was prepped for last week. Dory saying Holland needs to use that range in your opinion. I agree. I think Kevin Holland's going to win this fight. I know Joaquin Buckley, for him to win, he's got to press forward, really start to land the hands early. Kind of like that Justin James approach with Frank Camacho, because as the fight wears on, I know Buckley's still fresh from that fight that he had a week, 2 weeks ago, whatever it is. And Kevin Holland had the weight cut a week ago, but I don't really see that affecting him all that much. I think it's the one where he can use range, he can throw kicks, he takes a ton of damage. And a great comment right there I just saw by Trent Bossingham. Heard Kevin got a chin though. Yeah, I mean, Kevin Holland, if Thiago Santos couldn't finish him at 205, then I don't really think that you're going to see Joaquin Buckley be able to do it. Alex saying that it's a lock of the night. Matthew Knapp saying Holland's going to win. So we continue on. I'm going to stick with the pick of Kevin Holland in this one. We've seen a 41% change in the dollar for Kevin Holland. He opened as a minus 275 favorite. He's sitting at a minus 483 average on best fight odds right now. So pretty interesting stuff there. It's one of those ones that, yeah, it seems like a foregone conclusion. It should be a good fight. It's a good opportunity for Joaquin Buckley to get his foot in the door. So we're going to go with Holland in that one. We move up to our next fight where we move up, and maybe Laureano Staropoli going to have to move up and weight. I doubt it, but if you look at it, Tim Means weighed in originally at 172.5. He was allowed extra time to weigh in, got under the limit at 171, whereas Laureano Staropoli ended up at 174.5. That's a tough one when you look at this fight overall, because Laureano Staropoli, a lot of people kind of worrying about the gas tank. We saw it in some of his fights. Muslim Salikov was able to land at will. I'm surprised that fight wasn't ended in the second round. Whereas Tim Means in his last fight, we saw the flashes of Tim Means, just barely, but Daniel Rodriguez looking great in that one. So it's tough to try and get a read on Tim Means. To me, I don't really like him in and around. What is he at right now? Opened as a plus 135, dipped down almost to plus 110, 115. Now at a plus 126, a little bit of late Ched coming in on Staropoli, which is kind of surprising. Again, the weight cut. I think if you have 100% of both of these guys, I would take Staropoli 100%. I think Matt and I disagreed on this one. But yeah, I'm sticking with Laureano Staropoli. I really do think he'd be able to get the win. As Kwame says, you're brothers. Oh yeah, we're brothers. Dory saying Means really needs to get this to the ground. It's tough. It really is. Michael saying odds don't mean anything. It's a fight. You can't predict stuff. Look at the age of the fighters. That should tell you everything in momentum. I mean, Daniel Cormier is 41 years old. He could go out there and fight a 22-year-old right now. And I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into age at this point. Stefano saying Staropoli said he was doing a great weight cut. I don't know what happened with him. I don't know. I really don't. Matthew Knapp, do you guys do fight companions? We did way back when there might have been 150 subs in the channel. There weren't a lot of people paying attention, but yeah, it's one of those things, maybe, but maybe not. Reese keeps asking if I bet on fights. I have a Fight Night Picks channel. So Tim Means taking on Laureano Staropoli. It's one of those ones where Staropoli hits so hard, and you have to worry about Tim Means. I mean, at this point in his career, the trouble with putting too much stock into the age category is the fact that this guy's had so many wars. I mean, if you want to go down through it and look at the wins and look at the losses, let's go down. Let's flip through. So out of his wins, 19 wins by knockout, 5 by submission. If you look at his losses, he has been knocked out twice, lost 5 by submission. So then we pop back up. Well, what were the losses that he got finished or that he got knocked out? Well, in 2 of his last 3 fights, he's been knocked out. Nico Price and Daniel Rodriguez. And he finished Thiago Alves, who's no longer in the UFC. And he beat Ricky Rainey, that wasn't really ready for the UFC when he got the call up. He lost a split to Bilal Muhammad. It's hard to have a good fight against Bilal Muhammad. He can really become a wet blanket, if you will. Sergio Moraes, if he shows up, he's good. And yeah, you continue on. So let's see what we got. If we look over on Tapology, on this one, let's see, 22 votes for Means. You got 38 for Staropoli. It'll be interesting to see what we get. I put those out last night, I believe. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. So Devin Brown saying Means looked kind of last fight. He's starting to look old. It's one of those ones where if he's in shape, if he can really throw with a lot of technique and he's got his speed there, Tim Means could certainly win this fight. I mean, it could be death by 1,000 cuts. It could be lands a hard concussive shot. But yeah, it should be a really good one. Producer Henny Boy hanging out. Haven't seen you. Good to see you. So really appreciate that. And we will roll on because we're really moving into the meat of the order here. And this is where it gets interesting because Beneil Dariush, like I said, missed weight. He came in, and I'll give you the exact number. He came in at 158. Scott Holtzman 156. So Beneil Dariush 2 pounds over that 1 pound weight allowance. And the other thing, UFC betting experience. Yeah, Slim Shady, Staropoli. So interesting stuff there. But Beneil Dariush, Scott Holtzman. Scott Holtzman, we know, has really good boxing. He can throw a nice leg kick, but typically he's pushing forward. In that fight against Jim Miller, as the fight wore on, Scott Holtzman had a little bit more success, started to pepper in a little bit. But Jim Miller was able to land quite handily in that fight. He landed a few nice left overhands where you thought, hey, if Jim Miller really rolls into this one, maybe he could get a finish, but it didn't happen for him early in the first round. And then Holtzman was able to kind of take over. It'll be interesting to see again how that weight cut affects Beneil Dariush. But Kyle Kelly saying thanks for the insight every week. Appreciate it tuning in from good old Edmonton. I appreciate you as well. A lot of people going with Dariush, I see. To me, Dariush is that guy that if his chin was like Mark Hunt's chin, he'd be your champion at lightweight. If he could really figure everything out, yes, I know Khabib would be a tough fight for him. I get it. But Beneil Dariush is one of those guys that has all of those tools, but he's just got to really bring them all together. So I still think that Dariush is going to be able to get it done in this fight. We called it a lock of the week earlier on when we made our picks. Tough with that weight cut. We're going to stick with Beneil Dariush in this one. I don't see a lot of people going with Holtzman. And I also see it could happen 21 saying Gutierrez was heavier and missed weight. And we saw how that affected signs. That was Jonathan Martinez, but you're right. Weight miss might favor Dariush, especially if he has power. It's been weird with weight misses this year because fighters are almost 500 when they miss weight. And I think the year before that, in 2019, it was a lot more the fighters that were missing weight were having a lot more success. So It'll be interesting to see how this one goes. Martial arts fans saying Dariush have to fade Scott since his fight with Lentz. Yeah, that was a tough one too. So there's a lot of good opportunities for Beneil Dariush in this fight. I see a lot of people going with him as well. So then we move into Yana Kunitskaya taking on Julija Stoliarenko. And I saw a lot of people in the comments over on the YouTubes where we're all hanging out right now going with Stoliarenko. And if I just pop back really quick, because I'm not thinking about it, but Beneil Dariush, Scott Holtzman, 52 going with Dariush, 11 going with Holtzman. So then we move forward again, like I said. We look at Yana Kunitskaya, Julija Stoliarenko, 33 going with Kunitskaya, 24 going with Stoliarenko. So it is very close. If you look over at the odds, that's where it gets kind of fun, because Kunitskaya is an average minus 183. The odds were at a minus 225 for most of this week. Now going the way of Stoliarenko slightly. So it's interesting to see that way. But overall, what's Stoliarenko good at? She's got that wicked armbar that you know it could come from anywhere. She can get it anywhere. I see Stefano saying Stoliarenko was beaten by Leah Letson, but then she went back to the regional scene. She started to win some fights handily. Then she came back with Invicta, had that great fight, winning the belt, and now, boom, you're fighting the former Invicta bantamweight champion, Yana Kunitskaya. So it'll be interesting to see what we get out of Yana Kunitskaya. It's tough to tell because she's been off for quite some time. That Renault fight is always troubling, and I certainly understand that one. JTMMA saying you've got Yana Kunitskaya. I'm not going to change my pick here. Overall, if you look at Yana Kunitskaya's body of work, yeah, Tanya Evinger, it's a mixed bag with what we got from her. The no contest that was really weird. Then she lost by rear naked in 2017. She's been armbarred before by Zaira Daishikova. Lost by knockout to Chris Cyborg, and then the finish loss to Aspen Ladd. So it's really tough. I'm surprised that she's this big of a favorite because we haven't seen her in almost a year. I think it's been 8 months since the last time that we saw Yana Kunitskaya in the octagon. So it'll be interesting because Kunitskaya, good up against the fence. You'd have to think maybe Stoliarenko try and pressure, try and really grab for that arm. Brandon making a really good point saying Kunitskaya is a BJJ black belt, and I think that was something that we touched on in the original video. Jonathan saying that Stoliarenko is more game. The tough thing for me is, and we see this all the time, the fact that Stoliarenko is one of those fighters that it's less about the technique, it's more about the power shots to close distance, and then she can really implement her game plan. She throws a lot more ones, and she'll throw 1-2s or, long combinations. So it's one of those ones where, and everybody complains, but it's one of those ones where I wouldn't go with it because it's so unpredictable. Julija Stoliarenko with the finishing ability. If it goes longer into the fight, I would favor Yana Kunitskaya. And again, how much stock do you put into Stoliarenko's last fight? Because if you look at it, win over, let's see, Natalia Dayachkova. It was her debut. That was after fighting Leah Letson. This is 2019 for Stoliarenko. Then she beats Marta Walesiak, 4-1. We'd have to look at her record a little bit more. Victoria Davaranovic, debut. Miriam Tunashvili, 2-3, and then she fought Lisa Verzosa, who only had 4 fights in her career, and beat her soundly. She definitely beat her. It was a close fight. It was a split decision, what have you. The damage was, the writing was on the wall, and the damage was there for Lisa Verzosa. But yeah, I see Tristan saying, LOL, the Molly McCann lock, and I can't see who's ripping me on the Molly McCann lock. Michigonian, you've been watching for a while, but it's the first time I made it to question mark kicks. I've been trying to thank you for a few weeks since that 100% Molly McCann lock. Oh boy. Listen, things happen. So it's one of those ones I would stay away from. Appreciate you, Dan. Appreciate... Who else is up here that had something nice to say? There was somebody. Derrick saying, where's his partner in crime? She's a solo show. So we got 20 minutes left. Let's rip through the rest of this card. We have 3 really good fights. Darren Stewart taking on Maki Pitolo. What are you thinking about this one? Because this is a great fight at middleweight. I think there's all sorts of juice with your underdog at this point in Maki Pitolo. We've seen a shift towards Darren Stewart, also slightly. Overall, It should be a good one. Darren Stewart, if he wants to throw the kitchen sink at you, he can. If he wants to start to wrestle, there's a chance he could do that. It's just when he wrestled in his last fight, if you watch that one against Bartosz Fabinski washed him in that fight. Fabinski looked amazing there, and Darren Stewart did not. So it'll be interesting to see what Darren Stewart comes out of the gate in this one. Do we get the guy that fought against Bartosz Fabinski, or do we get the guy that we know and love and puts on those exciting fights? Like Cameron saying, Darren Stewart, late TKO. Maybe we'll get to see that on the recap show with Cameron coming up tomorrow, depending on when you guys do the show. But I'm looking forward to it. I go on vacation tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that one as well. Kyle Kelly tossing in the $6.99. I appreciate you. You're helping out the channel, so thanks, Kyle. The chat's really starting to come down in here. Nobi saying, would you put your money on Kunitskaya or Sanchez? Sanchez over Kunitskaya, I wouldn't get close to that one. Kane is saying the most misogynistic comment that I've ever seen. So Kane, we don't need that kind of stuff here. That's Bush League, buds. But Darren Stewart, overall, a really good fighter. So for Maki Pitolo, that fight that he had against Callum Potter, it's tough to put a lot of stock into it. At 70, down under, it was a tough one. And I see Al Ben saying Darren should win. I don't think Pitolo can stop his takedowns. I get it. If you look at Darren Stewart so far, knocks out Eric Spicely. He has the knockout win over Charles Byrd. No longer in the UFC, either of those two guys. Kyle Kelly popping back with a $6.99. Appreciate that. Holy crow. Kyle Kelly, you're the real MVP. Loses to Edmund Shabazian in a fight that was really close. I get it. It was a split. And think about what you think with, Shabazian to this point. The kid's only 22 years old, so don't take too much away from him. Beats Bavon Lewis, beats Deron Winn in a split in a fight that I thought that he won. But Deron Winn, gonna wrestle. The trouble is here, again, Brandon pointing out, Darren has a poor gas tank. So if it goes on longer, well, what do we get out of Maki Pitolo? You know Coconut Bombs can throw the coconut bombs, and he can really hit quite hard. So for me, it's a fight where, again, I do think Maki Pitolo has a great shot in this one. I think he has value, especially sitting at, where is he now? Open as a plus 110. At one point, he was a plus 160. Now he's sitting around a plus 137. I'm going to stick with Maki Pitolo. Matt also had Pitolo. It should be a great fight. There's a definite path to victory for Darren Stewart. You can't take that away from him, so pick whoever you want. In this one, you can always pick whoever you want. But Darren Stewart has a path. It's just the Julian Marquez fight. I know it was a while ago, but I can see this one going similar to that one. And I think Pitolo is going to get the win. Easy Dub saying, do you think the fight is going to go to the scorecards? I really don't. I think you're going to get a finish in this one. I think it's going to be a great fight. Now, if you want to know what the Instagrammers are thinking on this one, we look into it. 33 votes for Pitolo and 27 in favor of Darren Stewart. Interesting stuff. Michigonian tossing down the $10. Apparently, you've forgiven me for the Molly McCann fight. See, it takes a while. That fight was what, almost a month ago at this point. So yeah, and maybe check out Vertiball too. You can help us out. I needed to roll those knots out of my back because I'm way ahead of Matt now in the old prediction. Well, I don't know what you want to call it. The rankings so far this year. I think I'm 65.9%. So it's going good. It's going good. So Hammy asking, what do I think over under 2.5 rounds for this fight? I mean, it's a 3-round fight. I don't see it going into the later half of the third. I think you're probably going to see a finish in this one. So our next one. This is the most contentious fight that I think we've ever predicted because there's so many Chris Weidman fans. And shout out, I didn't pick Chris Weidman to win this one originally. Chris Weidman at weigh-ins, you can see much taller fighter, much bigger guy than Akhmedov is. But if you look at it, a lot of people are ragging on Akhmedov. You know, he's not a finisher. His wrestling's not that great, this and that. But if you go back and you watch Omari Akhmedov's last fight, and I know this is something that Matt and I say all the time, but we didn't get the Jorge Gurgel Ian Heinisch that we saw against Gerald Mearshart at the Bangkok Ready Ian Heinisch. But we did see Ian Heinisch where he had the opportunity to land some good shots against Akhmedov, but Akhmedov just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and landing those long shots. This guy's got really long arms. Not to say that Chris Weidman doesn't, but just to point to the fact that Omari Akhmedov, he'll throw those leg kicks. Some of them land, some of them don't. He can really work distance quite well, and that was the thing. He caused Ian Heinisch issues because he just pushed the pace, landed really nice shots. Aaron Granoff saying someone needs to acknowledge that Akhmedov beat Ian Heinisch. That's where I'm going. Easy. Omari Akhmedov definitely beat Ian Heinisch. I pulled it up on MMA decisions. There was 2 people, I think, that scored at 30-27 for Akhmedov. Everybody else 29-28 Akhmedov. I had it 29-28 with Akhmedov winning rounds 1 and 2. Round 3, he kind of dropped off a cliff, and Heinisch was able to implement his own wrestling, really start to land some of his shots. I just don't see that happening in this fight. If Akhmedov gets slowed down so badly that into the 3rd round, he doesn't look all that great, that very well could happen. Kyle Kelly, you see the trend I started, LOL. Well, I appreciate it, Kyle. I really do, so thank you. Time is not aligned saying congrats on 10K. How long did it take you to get from 1,000 to 10K? Feels like a blink of an eye. It took from January until now, and for us to get 1,000 subscribers, it took a year and a half. So that's how long it takes. And if you have a YouTube channel out there, I just want to say this right now, just really quick as we move along, because I appreciate everybody popping into the chat and tossing down the super chats, and I want to help some people out. So if you are thinking about starting a channel, or if you already have one right now, just keep at it. Just keep really pounding the pavement, doing the best work that you can, being consistent, trying to network as best you can, and success will come your way. So I really appreciate everybody. Kyle, did we just become best friends? I don't know. You have to call me Dragon, and I have to call you Nighthawk. So in this fight, though, Chris Weidman, 1-5 in his last 6. He knows it. He said, kind of his back's up against the wall. All 5 of those losses are by finish. There's tough ones there that you just can't overlook. So if we bring it up, I know he looked good in a lot of those fights. PUBG Truck Troll has a channel, so that's cool. Maybe check out his. JTMMA saying thank you for the encouraging words for a fellow content creator. You put a question mark? Oh yeah, check it out. PUBG Troll Truck saying it's PUBG Gaming Channel though. Well, that's good. So appreciate it. And Hendrick saying sideline Canadians are in general nice people. Currently work with them here in Suriname. You must be looking forward to next week because you've got a really good fight coming up between Jairzinho Rosenstrike and Junior Dos Santos. But if we can round this off, we get 15 minutes left and 2 fights. The Chris Weidman fights, again, we didn't get a good account of Chris Weidman in his last fight. It did not go well against Dominic Reyes. It really didn't. Jacare, he looked good until he didn't. Gegard Mousasi was a weird finish. Yoel Romero, he looked good until he didn't. But if we go back far enough, that Yoel Romero fight was almost 4 years ago, and then the Luke Rockhold fight when he lost his belt was almost 5 years ago. So it's been a really long time since we've seen Chris Weidman. The Kelvin Gastelum fight was great at home, Long Island. That was 3 years ago. So what do we get? What do we get in this fight? It's too unpredictable. It really is. Omari Akhmedov at, what was he? He opened as a -150, currently sitting at +125. Chris Weidman, biggest shift in the line on the card, minus 48% or 48% shift in Weidman. And I see a lot of people saying that they're going with Akhmedov. I'm going to go with Akhmedov, and I see Kyle Kelly saying Omari doesn't normally knock guys out, but Weidman can't take a shot. Is there any chance he can knock him out? It's one of those ones that I'd have to see. Let's see. The over-under at 1.5 rounds. The over is a -250. Over 2.5 rounds, -120. Fight going to a decision is in the pluses. And fight doesn't go to a decision is in the minuses. There's one site, there's a glitch, and it's -700. So that's kind of crazy to see. But I think it's one of those ones that's probably going to get, we'll get through the first round. In the second round, we'll really start to see what's going to happen. So if there's some good live lines, there's your opportunity. But I'm going to stick with Omari Akhmedov in this one, and I see JTMMA saying it, and I've got to do it. My favorite video to check out online, I've got a few really weird ones that I like to see, but when that Irish guy said, Chris, what did you think about or Luke, what did you think about Chris's dad saying he's daddy's boy, and Luke Rockhold goes, he's still his son. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Luke Rockhold, shame. All right, so Derrick Lewis, Aleksei Oleinik, let me know what you're thinking about our main event. It's a great fight, and it's one of those ones where, again, you can pretty well say what's going to happen. Derrick Lewis is going to win by knockout. Aleksei Oleinik is going to win by submission. I jumble it around in my head, and listen, you can rag on me if you want, but this is another fight. I would fade this one because Derrick Lewis, he's a 2-1 favorite. That's crazy. It really is. To me, in my mind, this is a pick'em fight. And I see right there, Artem the GOAT saying Derrick Lewis by flying heel hook in the 6th. There's people saying Aleksei Oleinik's going to knock out Derrick Lewis. I don't see that. A lot of people ragged on Matt in the comments for saying that Derrick Lewis had better striking at heavyweight than Walt Harris. one thing that people like to really rag on me about is saying that, oh, Derrick Lewis can just pop back up to his feet. I saw a thing on Reddit where Derrick Lewis, and it was just a compilation of Derrick Lewis popping back up to his feet. I saw that today. Shane saying Lewis by heel hook. The Pullable Bear with the super chat. Really appreciate that. Super lock of the night. Down against the bookie right now. Yikes. For me, I like Erwin Rivera in the first fight. I really do. And then I still like Beneil Dariush against Scott Holtzman. So that's the way that I'm going. It's tough. I mean, I see Trent Boskingham saying I think the weight stops Oleinik from holding Lewis down. It very well could. Lewis versus Oleinik not going the distance is minus 800. That's a huge line, but I see no possible way it goes the distance. I don't think it's going to go the distance either. Gerald saying no way Lewis is going back on the feet. I mean, he can do it. He can do it. He certainly can. It'll be interesting. It really will be. But we've seen Aleksei Oleinik get caught. That's the troubling thing. We saw it. And again, against really good strikers, we saw it against Alistair Overeem. We saw it against Walt Harris. Really crisp, really technical strikers. Derrick Lewis isn't as crisp or as technical as those guys. Maybe more looping shots. We saw it in the Curtis Blades fight. Really good wrestler. It's tough. I see Tristan saying over under 1.5 rounds. I would favor an over in that one. I really would. Usman saying, hey, who'd you pick? Stewart, Pitolo. I went with Pitolo. But yeah, there's a lot of fights, and I see Al Ben saying this whole card seems screams GPP. Yeah, it's a tough one to try and get because again, it's one of two extremes: Lewis by knockout or Oleinik by submission, and that's pretty much what you're gonna get. And we saw Aleksei Oleinik look great in his last fight against Fabrizio Verdum. Really did. He had that submission win over Maurice Green. That was a thing. I mean, foregone conclusion. Green's probably gonna win by knockout or he would get exhausted, or Aleksei Oleinik's going to win by submission. I think there's a great opportunity for Oleinik in this fight, and if you want to go with him, I can certainly understand that. And again, that's why I would stay away from it. So, Quell saying definitely an over. Arden the Goat saying thoughts on Dariush missing weight. I kind of went through that, so now we're going to rip through all the picks on the card. I got to flip them all off before I get into it. Oh, now we got Whitaker. You can see what's in the background. It's Whitaker and Till. So, over on the Instagram, see if anything changed in the story for Fight Night picks. I see some people have started to follow along since we started. Tristan saying, if you ever go to vacation in Vancouver, hit you up. I'd have to fly all the way across the country. Yikes. I don't know if that's going to happen in 2020, but maybe I'll hit you up if it does happen. Kyle Kelly, hot sauce for spicy upset. I don't think it's going to happen. Jakal Wittick, did I pronounce your name properly? Oleinik doesn't have the cardio. So let's go through it. So I've got Erwin Rivera over Ali Alcazy. This should be a really good fight. There's a path for Alcazy to get a win. I mean, Erwin Rivera is really good on top, but how good is he if Alcazy takes him down and gets on top? I don't know, and Alcazy has the submission ability. Then we've got Yusuf Zalal against Peter Barrett. Yusuf Zalal coming in as a huge favorite on short notice, taking on Peter Barrett. Yeah, I don't see it for Peter Barrett. He's a great fighter. Trent Bossingham with the super chat. Appreciate you going with your picks there. So you've got Oleinik, Zalal, Holland, Pitolo, Jane, Staropoli. Thoughts on this betting wise? I mean, you heard what I went through. I've got Lewis, I've got Zalal, I've got Holland like you do. I've got Pitolo, I've got Tucker rather than Janes, and I've got Staropoli. Arden the Goat, we'll get to yours in a while. Great nicknames, you're right. Hot Sauce and Black Beast. So I've got Zalal to beat Barrett. Then in your next one, I've got Tucker to beat Janes. That fight's super close. I know you're asking about it and thoughts on it. It's such a pick'em fight. I can see a victory for both guys. I'm just making a pick and saying Tucker. Matt's going with Janes in that one. Andrew Sanchez, Wellington Turman, close odds. I really think that that your guy Andrew Sanchez, the Ultimate Fighter winner, has a good chance. El Directo, you're gone. You're gone. See you later, pal. Get out of there. No more spamming the chat. But yeah, I've got Andrew Sanchez to beat Wellington Turman. I think he's got a good shot in this one. Nazareth Haqparast, Alex Munoz. Munoz has a better shot than anybody's giving him credit. Again, wrestling coach over at Team Alpha Male. Decent hands. Had that big win that we saw, and we haven't seen him in a while. But over Nick Newell. And I know Nick Newell had that fight against Manny Muro in Bellator, and if you watch that one, it didn't go all that well. But Alex Munoz has a better shot than a lot of people. So I think it should be a good one. Devin Brown, not high on Turman, but that's fine. It really is. Akash Deep saying, cheers, brother, at work right now, so you can't watch the whole thing. Well, I appreciate you. You're normally here every weekend. That's pretty cool. And yeah, so I'm going to stick with Nasser Haqparast in this one. But Alex Munoz, man, there's a good shot. I wouldn't put Haqparast on my card just because of that. Holland over Buckley. Good opportunity for Buckley and a really powerful guy, but I don't have Buckley in this one. I've got Staropoli to beat Means. You just have to worry about whether or not the weight cut was a huge issue for Staropoli, but I'm going to stick with Staropoli over Tim Means. Then you got Dariush and Holtzman. I'm still going with Dariush. Again, weight was an issue there. Then we got Kunitskaya, Stoliarenko, sticking with Yana Kunitskaya. Yeah, it'll be a good fight because Stoliarenko, all those finishes. So it'll be interesting to see what we get there. Then you've got Stewart, Pitolo. Good method for either guy to win. Again, the odds are, let's see, somewhat unprofessional. Pitolo plus 137 and Darren Stewart minus 165 if you're looking at an average there. I really think that Pitolo has a good shot, even as an underdog in that one. Then you move into your next fight. I've still got Akhmedov over Chris Weidman. It's again, somewhat unpredictable because Chris Weidman hasn't been a good streak, but you've seen flashes of the old Chris Weidman. Omari Akhmedov, very consistent. And then if you go back to Lewis and Oleinik, I'm going Oleinik, but it's one of the two opposing outcomes. Submission by Oleinik, finish by Lewis. You're probably not going to hear anything else from anybody else. So Jesse Blanchard saying, what's your best picks or favorites? I like Rivera to win over Alcazy, and I like Staropoli over Means, and I still like Beneil Dariush over Holtzman. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope everybody enjoys the fights. We're about 5 minutes away from them, so really appreciate everybody tuning in and hanging out. And yeah, hopefully you can check back in next week. We already released our videos for next weekend's card with Cormier and Miocic 3, so you can check them out. They're already out there. They just came out a couple of hours ago, so enjoy those. Enjoy the fights, and as we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.
It's time!
For 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from